Hello, thank you for coming to this preliminary lecture. My name is Andrea Blatnik and I am the mother of two little kids, Martin, 4 years old, Rebecca, 2. I'm president of the Association for Creative Education. So, how did we come to spread the knowledge of creative upbringing? And why is Mrs. Milica Novkovic with us today? We've lived in Belgrade for 2 years. Martin was 2 years old. My husband was sent by his employer to work in Belgrade. Rebecca was born, and some situations that we could not solve started to appear. Then I asked my husband, "What should we do? We don't know how to solve these situations." And then I remembered Mrs. Milica Novkovic, who I'd heard at a parents' meeting in primary school. Martin was going to a Serbian kindergarten. I called Mrs. Milica and said, "Mrs. Milica, come, we have a problem." She said, "Okay, well, how old are the children?" "Rebecca is 3 months old and Martin is 2. "What kind of problem can you have with such a small kid?" I said, "Come." She answered, "Okay." She came. I still remember. It was Sunday. She said all this that you will hear today and changed our lives. Right away we knew that this was for real. We are on the road of creative upbringing. With our kids, it was pretty easy to apply these models or to dismiss old ones. We needed more time. After 1.5 years, we discovered that we were closer. With 2 little kids, the relationship between a man and a woman is not so tight anymore. But the 2 of us found each other again. Then we started thinking how we could invite Mrs. Milica to Slovenia in order to help families in Slovenia to find solutions. We all have problems, and Mrs. Milica has a universal way of removing the problems. We called Milica and asked her if she would come to Slovenia. She said, "No problem." And that's how we established the association. The purpose of the association is to spread the knowledge and ideology of creative education. We will work on a membership principle. But for us, members are any families that decide to apply creative education. Today you will hear the introductory lecture. In front of you is the book, The Family Alphabet, which will help you to move from theory to practice. After you've read the book, after you've heard the lecture, you can start to exercise or practice. I will read what you will find out today. How to achieve a healthy, composed family and a healthy business environment. How to educate without rewards and punishment. How to bring up offspring who live, work and learn with joy and love. How to decrease the number of divorces and violence between sexes in the family. How to increase the number of healthy marriages and the birth rate. How to establish life based on eternal values. How to create the family as the safest house on the world. When is it recommended to receive and apply the knowledge of creative education? If your child is lazy or disobedient, asks you to buy something for him all the time, is emotionally oversensitive or undersensitive, is victimized by other children, is violent or extremely lonely, spends hours in front of the TV or computer, is not studying and getting good marks, or is learning a lot with poor results. If your child often falls ill, if you are divorced or close to divorce, if your partner is not interested in the children's education, school becomes a problem for both teacher and pupil, if communication at work becomes unbearable. That is all I wanted to tell you. Now I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Milica Novkovic. Hello, I'm Milica Novkovic. Maiden name Vojnovic. I was born in Zemun in 1947 and raised in Vojvodina in Serbia, where I spent my whole childhood. I finished the gymnasium, high school and philological faculty. My maternal grandmother is Slovenian, from Ptuj. The other day I was in Ptuj for the first time, and I'm very happy that Slovenia is the first foreign country I have visited. Maybe this is significant. When I was little, early in my childhood, I noticed that something was wrong with families. Mother and father used to quarrel a lot, sometimes in front of the children, sometimes not. I saw that children were suffering. I was suffering. I had a very strict mother, Slovenian. She was so strict with me, and I thought that I was not a child that she was supposed to beat so much, to ill-treat. She used to say to me, "I'm doing this for your sake." I could not understand that. "Why are you beating me? Why are you angry with me? Why are you punishing me?" And so little. I was only 10. I said to myself, when you grow up, you will find some cure for the family, a remedy of love for the family. Then I forgot about that. Life went on. I thought about whether I would be an engineer or a professor, but in the end I studied literature. I didn't think about this task of mine, to find the remedy of love for the family. When you position something in early childhood, later in life it happens by itself. What happened? I became a young teacher of literature. As such, I was entering secondary schools and kindergartens in Belgrade. One day I met a man nobody knew about. He was a teacher and pedagogue. At that time he had created his own work, New School, and his name was Petar Savić. 1932 was the time when Maria Montessori and Steiner created, and Petar Savić created too. However, before the beginning of the 21st century, it was not the first time either for Montessori, nor for Steiner, nor for Petar Savić. As Andrea said, I recognized that this is it. Since then, I have not stepped away from the initiator of creative education, created in Serbia in 1932. Professor Savić died in 1993, and by then I had already been practicing his theory, the New School, for 25 years as a teacher. My pupils worked with love, comprehended with love, and I didn't ask myself why it was so, why they studied with love. For me, it was enough. Everyone congratulated, "Bravo, excellent!" But no one wanted to organize anything, or to do an experiment. No, it was still not the time for that. I wasn't angry. In 1993, when the professor died, I said, "Enough! I'm leaving this school. I don't want to be a teacher anymore. And I don't want to work like everybody else." I quit teaching and I opened a private kindergarten. In Serbia this was possible, and it was one of the first private kindergartens. I called it Good Pupil. This is just proof that deep in my soul I am a teacher pedagogue, and that I could not release myself from the mission of being a teacher so easily. In 1994 the Good Pupil was opened. The kids came. It was the time of the onset of transition in Serbia. I have a traditional conscience, and for me it was unusual for a kid to come to me and say, "Oh, hi, Milica." How come Milica? I'm not Milica for him or her. I'm a teacher, an educator. These kids were so free, and this was new to me since I'd been a teacher in a traditional school and a teacher who was working on the model of creative education by Petar Savić. All that time children would say, "We're bored. Everything's boring for us." And they were only 4, 5 or 6 years old. "Why boring? What can I do for you?" I asked. "Play us a cartoon," they would say. We bought one cassette, then another cassette, and they used to bring their own in the morning. I played a cartoon for them, and when it was finished, I'd say, "Okay, now, can you tell me what you've seen in this cartoon?" They didn't know anything. I realized they were watching it unconsciously and only wanting more mass in their heads. When I said, "Let's sing something," they said, "Oh, it's so boring." Then they fought with each other. They went out into the yard, as school was in my house, and they destroyed everything. Note that these kids had gardens in their own houses. They did not live in high-rise buildings. And why would they smash anything? And they always did it after watching the cartoons, aggressive ones. And at that time it was Ninja Turtles and others. 2 months later, I realized that I'd not opened the school to create a new creative kindergarten to continue the school of Professor Savic. I saw that the kindergarten was good, just as my school was good. I had a good curriculum. I was teaching literature. They were studying in class. My pupils were like students. The other professors were ambitious too. I saw that these kids in kindergarten had a program, but they did not want to sing, to learn, to comprehend what was predicted. The only things they wanted were cartoons. When I invited mums to the school, I would tell them, "Please come to the school so that we can meet, so that you can see how I am working with your children." Mothers would say, "Please, we're so tired of the kids. We need to go for a walk." I saw that something was wrong. "Why tired? She only has one kid. Tired? What are you tired of? Where is love for the kid?" No, they kept saying, "We're tired, we need to go." Then I knew why I'd opened the school. I did not open it to create a new creative kindergarten. I opened it because I wanted to make a new program for the family. I realized that all the problems that children were bringing to the school were family problems. From which family? From the modern family. Well, I must say that 2 to 3 years later, I closed the school. Then I made a decision, although I did not know how. I'm a teacher and I like to talk. I don't know how to write. I was not meant to write. However, there was no choice. I had to sit down and write. In 1999, when Serbia was bombed, I was living in a suburban area of Belgrade, close to Straževica, where the greatest number of bombs fell. Airplanes were flying above, and I sat and wrote. I wrote every night. When the bombing was over, the first book was finished. The first book that Andrea and the association translated into Slovenian. It was the Family Alphabet 1999. It was not easy. I had to transfer all my experience from school, without punishment or reward, to transfer the entity to the family. At school there is the pupil, the book and the teacher. In a family there are mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, mother-in-law, aunt, and there is TV. It's a member of the family too. I had to think and ask myself, how come Savic's school was so good? It was very hard for me, but I succeeded. In 2000 I went on tour in Serbia, Montenegro and Republika Srpska, and in 2009 I came to Slovenia. And for all these 9 years I've been planting the seed. One lecture, then another. I have counted up to 1,000. Where? In schools, in kindergartens, hospitals, banks, prisons, in correctional facilities. They used to ask me, "What are you doing in prisons? Why are you giving lectures about love in prison?" My answer was, because they are our children. And that prisoner comes from a family. Then they ask, why are you holding lectures in hospitals? There is some kid in a hospital, or some doctor who is treating them, and this education is for all people, for mum and dad, for the teacher, for the wider community. If the primary family is good, the secondary family, society, will be okay too. This means your workplace too. Then you will work well as a team, because between you, in your relationships, there will be no authority models, punishment and reward. I have not had a negative response yet, and I assume I've been over 100 times on local TV. Everyone has been very open to me. Radio, TV, my professors, and I was happiest when entering a school. It was my house, my family. I realized that I had to return to my school because my colleagues had problems that I did not have when I was working in the school. I belonged to a traditional school, and now my colleagues were facing problems and found it very difficult in a modern school. This introduction followed my work from one city to another, from place to place, and then, amongst other things, in 2000 I met a great man. I'm very lucky. I meet brilliant people. Petar Savić was a genius, and Mr. Park is a genius too. Who is Mr. Park? Mr. Park is from Korea. He treats hands and feet, suyoko. Mrs. Vera introduced us. The following 5 years, until 2005, I intensely studied that science. And I asked myself why I was doing this, spending so much money on it. I didn't want to treat people with this knowledge. I'm treating people through education. So today, creative education is a kind of treatment for people. Through punishment and reward, children actually become ill emotionally. Now I'm working on you, not disturbing your children so that they become ill, but putting things in order. Meanwhile, when I started to write another book, and when young parents were telling me, in the first book you made a point regarding creative education, but what shall we do? What about parents who have already made mistakes with their children? Our big kids don't want to learn. They have bad marks. They're attacking their teachers. They are aggressive towards us. I said to myself, if I'm a real education, a creative educator, I must find a model to recover what's been done in the wrong way. So this other book is actually meant for older children. How to recover kids who have been treated incorrectly. These are your problems in kindergartens, in schools, in prisons. Then I realize why I only speak about 5 authoritarian educational models. Just to make it clear, when I say authority, the very first notion of the modern man is a stick. No. Authority is everything from the outside. You see, when a baby is born, he or she is perfect. Inside, babies have the seed of love, the protective emotion, the seed of emotional intelligence. All this has to be developed, the seed of goodness, the seed of joy. They have software written inside their DNA. What can they achieve? Does one have the potential to be a Nikola Tesla in the future? This is all inside of us. It's written. Why then do we have to do training from the outside? Then I realized that I had scientifically to improve my creative educational method. Mr. Park kept saying in every lecture, "This is a circle." This has been known since before Christ. What did Mr. Park do? Instead of using energy from the outside, he put one's own human energy into a circle. This meant that you could see from this one energy what is emotion and which organs are attacked. You can see the mental level as well. And he kept talking about 5, 5, 5. Why do I speak about 5 authoritarian educational models? These are punishment, reward. In modern education, this is called soft pressure, which influences the brain. The third model is overprotection. Instead of the child, you do things while a kid can actually do a lot. The fourth model is verbalism. We will understand this later. The fifth authoritarian model is abuse of the imitating mind. These 5 models that I've just listed all come from outside. I guess the picture is clearer now as to why the traditional family had no problems with upbringing. At that time, only 2 models existed. And how many models does the modern family have? 5. And how many authentic emotions do we have? 5. What did the traditional family have? They had punishment, let's say that is the stick in our time, and they had a nice word. Here is a nice word, here is punishment. The other 3 authentic emotions stayed completely free. If the kid got the stick, it ran through the grass, went to the river for a swim, cried a little bit, then grandmother told him, "Well, you have to listen to your mum thinks about you," and it's done. With the traditional family, this was still easy. The reason is that the organization of life in society and family is pyramidal. Everybody who was at the top of the pyramid knew it. In the traditional family, father was on top of the pyramid, mother was under, etc. The oldest child was controlling younger children. And there was one more advantage. There were rules. Which rules? Those that completely corresponded to the society we belonged to. If we had capitalism before socialism in this country, in the Balkan area, we could have had different rules. We can see now that the West has other rules. But since we lived, for example, in feudalism, these rules existed. When you enter into socialism, you had such and such rules, where society creates the rules and tells them to the family. You have to raise such and such kid. Remember the little pioneers with red scarves? To be healthy, smart, to love each other, brotherhood and unity, Croats, Slovenians and Serbs all together, these were the rules of society. And this was easy to achieve, by force or by nice behavior. Those rules were respected. Whoever didn't want to respect the rules had to deal with the punishment. But I have to tell modern parents who tell their kids how they were punished very much in the traditional family, they weren't. Now when I remember, my mother didn't punish me so much. Violence today in the modern family is greater than it was in the traditional one. Violence today in the modern family is greater than it was in the traditional one, but no one will admit it. I'm neither defending tradition, nor am I for the modern family. I vote for the third family, for the family of the third millennium. It's the creative family. If we understand why it was easy in the traditional family, we have to see what happened. When? Where? What made the traditional family disappear? It doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. The traditional family is gone. What we do now is to cry. There are no values. There's no morality. There's no goodness. Will somebody bang his fist on the table and say, "It can't go on like this anymore"? No, no one will. Every person has to understand what is happening and what the road of transformation of the modern family to the creative family means, since tradition does not exist anymore. There is only the wish and memories of older people that it was good in the traditional family. No, it was not good. I'm not an animal, and my mother is not supposed to beat and tell me, "You have to eat or you'll be punished." But that was even better than today's giving of rewards. What happens if she said, "Drink that milk," and I could not? As soon as my mother went out, I found a cat and then shared the milk with her. The problem was solved. The modern child will not share the milk with a cat. They will eat and eat what they like and what they hate, just to be rewarded afterwards. So, I do not say that it was good in the traditional family, but we have to understand why it disappeared. Did it disappear because God decided, or because people decided, or did society develop in such a way that it had to disappear? Let's see. There was the pyramidal organization of life. As long as the pyramid existed, the stick had to exist too. Man had to be punished to work, and the work was very hard. Men went to the field to work hard, and women sat at home. This was more or less an equal division. Women could not work hard. They didn't have the muscles. The first country that finished material development is the USA. I'm very grateful to the USA that they reached this goal first. The development of the material is finished. There is new technology. Everything is automated. Both men and women can fly an aeroplane. Even kids can drive a car. Everything is easy. Thanks to the fact that in the traditional family, where mother was at home, I'm not saying that this was good, but that was a process. When the growth of the material world was finished, the pyramid crashed. We do not need the pyramid anymore. America knew very well that the pyramid had to be dismantled. Why? Because this pyramid turned into the surface of life. Now, everything that was hidden under its sides has come to the surface. Was there homosexuality in the traditional family? Yes, but it was hidden. Were there rows between mothers and fathers in the traditional family? Yes, but no one talked about it. There were fights where no one could see. Was there adultery? Yes, but no one talked about it. Was there violence and incest in the traditional family? Yes, there was, but all this was hidden in that pyramid. When the pyramid collapsed, all sorts of evil came to the surface of life. Were there handicapped children? Yes. But what would parents do with them? They hid them. They thought, "My child is mentally ill. Oh, it's a shame, I have to hide it." Society did not accept it. "My child is gay." People knew that something like that existed, but it was hidden. When the pyramid collapsed, the American man knew that chaos, violence, and fights would start. Instinctively, people knew that it was a good road, but they did not know how to handle the new situation. This is the reason why they produced new rules. Rights for women, rights for children, rights for men, and a new word appeared, tolerance. Oh, people are tolerant. Gay parades, and that's great. But nothing good has happened. Instead of achieving the goal of the third millennium, where everything is easy and push button, the technological revolution, the third millennium is one of spirituality. Love and joy, instead of that, there is nothing. There is no love or goodness or joy anywhere, not even in the family, nor in society. Democracy, produced as a great thought. No. Something is wrong. Something is not working. Only violence everywhere. There is violence. Now, tolerance was supposed to stop the violence, but it was not stopped. Violence grows bigger every day. And if you want to admit it to yourself, the first thing you see when you turn on your TV is violence. Why so much violence everywhere? What makes people fight all the time? Why is there so much illness? Everyone talks about violence, but no one says, let us treat the violence. How shall we treat the violence? For example, today in Belgrade there's a football game. They copy the English model. Everyone who causes trouble at a football game goes into prison. Punishment. Everyone who sells alcohol within 100 meters of the Partizan Stadium will pay a fine of 50,000 dinars. They think they've solved the problem. But that's not the solution. Someone will go 200 meters from the stadium and be aggressive again, and will buy alcohol. The problem is not solved. Let's go and solve the problem in schools. Let's install cameras, and there will be no violence in school. Individuals will not be aggressive in school, afraid that father will have to pay the penalty, but they will go out, and they'll fight outside school. Why are things like that? Because no one wants to talk about the cause of violence. Why can't we achieve love and goodness? What are the causes? The causes are 5 authoritative educational models, and I will list them again. The stick, physical punishment, is forbidden. Then the teacher asks, what is there instead of it? The answer is reward and soft pressure. I thought that soft pressure meant that you spank him a little. No, it's forbidden. Now I've heard that Article 9 of Slovenian law says it's forbidden to punish children. The child will be able to call social services and complain that mum is punishing him. If asked how mum is punishing him, they will say, "Ah, she's pushing me too." Children think that they can do everything. Now let's see the game. First, parents do tender violence over their children, and then kids return with real violence towards parents or with some illness. If you want to force a kid to do something, let's take feeding, because this is a 5 times per day action, I used to say to parents, if you manage to feed the child without reward and punishment, you are on the road to creating a good person out of him. A good person who feels love for his or her parents, younger brother, school, kindergarten, even towards the wall where he should not draw graffiti. Today, punishment and reward of the child are used for everything. If you eat this, you will get that. What happened between the work and the child? Now the food is work. This is work. That is the child. You have placed profit between the child and his work. Put away your toys, brush your teeth, go to bed. Everyone who understands this just a little bit says, interest is interest, love is love. Where there is interest, there is no love. If you've positioned interest between a child and food, just food, not to mention toys and everything else, then you can expect that in time the child will completely lose the emotion of joy. He or she is not doing anything out of love. His or her brain is working 300 kilometers per hour. While watching an advertisement, he or she is asking, "What shall I condition my mother and father with?" Now he returns and said, "Do you want me to collect the toys?" "Okay, bring me new trainers." Now the child is setting conditions. And you did that to him 1 year ago. We can say that such a child, from an authentic wish and joy, we cannot live if we do not have wishes and joy, has lost the joy, but now only has his interest. They don't have joy or wishes, they say, buy, buy, buy. Their wishes are growing, and at once there are two possibilities. Greed, the sin of the 20th century. Why are we facing economic crisis now? There are no problems, there's enough money, but greedy people collect it all for themselves. Enormously big money, and ordinary people are on the breadline. A greedy man in a family brings that same greed into society. What could the final result of your positive conditioning be? For example, if you pass your first grade with A's, you'll get 100 euros, for example. In the fifth, you'll get a computer. Parents are constantly concerned about school, and later on we will see why these kids do not want to work. They say, 8th class, you'll get a motorbike. When you finish high school with A, you'll get a car. The greed gets bigger and bigger, more, more, more. At one moment you see that your child does not have love for you at all. He sees the sponsor in you. The greed is bigger and bigger, and the first time you say, I don't have the money, I can't give you any more, the kid knows exactly how much money you have in your pocket. When you are penniless, they quickly abandon you. What happens then? They find another source of money. Boys engage in crime very early. I had one such case. A girl in the 8th grade had a very good mobile phone. She lived conditionally to the extent that she could no longer understand moral principles, and she became greedy because she didn't have love. Her mother, a nurse, and grandmother called me saying, this girl is lying, and not only that, she's stealing. I asked, well, how is she stealing? Well, we were at our cousin's and there was a mobile worth 400 euros. When we came home, the cousin asked about her mobile. She had taken it. They came to my place. Everyone was worried. When we were little, they used to say, whoever lies also steals, and whoever steals also kills. A very serious situation. At my question, did you steal the phone? The answer was, no, I took the phone because I needed it. My mum punished me by taking away my mobile. I'm in love. My boyfriend's at the seaside. I needed the phone. When I came to my cousin, I saw a phone and I took it because I needed it. Do you understand how dangerous a greedy man is? He does not have a conscience. Where are the borders? What is mine? What is yours? What is moral? What is immoral? Why do they not have them? Because the 6th energy could not be developed, the emotion of joy, goodness, and love. These could not be developed. Now let's see what will happen with a child who is very greedy, and suddenly you say, come on please, do your test very well and you'll get a new game. And he says, Mum, I'm not interested. I don't want it. I don't need a new game. Aha, now he does not need the new game. And suddenly the child starts to be very quiet, not interested in anything, saying life is meaningless. Aged no older than 10 to 12 years. This is the road towards depression. This is the road towards suicide. When a child becomes wishless, Young parents say that it happens now even at the age of 5 to 6. Since they are saturated with toys, one sword, another sword. Actually, I had a case in Kragujevac. A little boy, he only wanted swords. Everyone gave him one. There were 150 swords in the house when I came. Only swords. And in the other box there were 100 little cars. As to what he ate, chocolates, fat food, that's a different story. What do we do when we pour a lot of things, sweets, games, over a child in order to make him work? We are created enormous wishes and joy, but it quickly comes to an end. If you remember, in the traditional family, when did our mother give us a new dress, new shoes, new skirt, big bows? Only for Christmas or Easter. And my family was very rich. My family had one of the first private businesses in Vojvodina. We could have everything. But my mother said, no, it's not possible. New things were not bought so that we could become good, but because of celebrations. My mother didn't understand why she shouldn't buy things for us. Older people knew. If you constantly fulfill the wishes of a child, the child will become sick. Either they will become wishless or get sick. Why? Because this energy is linked to the heart and guts, or heart and blood system. If you continuously make someone feel joy 7 times in 24 hours, sometimes 10 or 20 times you buy a shirt, then you buy a sword, Kinder chocolate surprise, you're raising this energy 20 times per day. The heart and all that joy raises blood pressure, sugar level. The heart cannot stand it for long. Also playing games because a child sits all the time in front of the TV and some new colours are there. At one moment the heart stops to function. Now we have the syndrome of manager illness with very little children. Why did I spend so much time speaking about reward? In order to make it understood that it's an evil, the origin of all evils in this world. Heart disease is the most common disease. And what should you expect when you destroy it from childhood? The next question parents ask the psychologist is, how can I push him to work when he says, I won't tidy up the toys, won't learn, when he says that I don't want to collect up the toys? This is simple. If they want something, then give it to them. I had a student who beat her father because he did not want to give her 200 euros more for pocket money. She was 19 and the father was rich. For 19 years he had been bribing her with money. She was raised like a star, never punished, always a good pupil in her school. By the way, kids can let you down even when they are good at school. They do it just out of interest, for profit, and they can be very greedy. The first time that father says, no, I cannot give you the money because you don't need to buy a dress, but to do some extreme sport, she slapped him. I asked him why he was silent. He said, I was in shock. I thought I had the best child in the world. I put this example in the book, and the title is, If I had died yesterday, I would not have known who I'd brought up. Luckily, this happened when she was 19 years old. Next evening, she slapped him again. He was again in shock. "Give, give!" He said, "No." Then she opened the window and said, "I do not need you as a sponsor any longer. I can find myself a new one. Blue Bridge, where the prostitutes go." Then they came to me. He asked, "What was my mistake?" I said, "Well, your mistake is because all the time you've been giving her something to make her do something. For every good mark up to 4th grade, she got 10 euros. Between 5th and 8th grade, she got 50 euros. When she became a student, for a good mark, she would get 100 euros. She was actually greedy, and she realized that her parent was a sponsor. Tragic. To say it again, if there's an interest between work and love, it means greed. Now the picture is clear. You can see that there is no love, that young people are love-lacking, and this is because of positive preconditioning in their lives. They went to see a psychiatrist to ask what to do. He said it was simple. Give her what she wants. And what's the punishment? When she is okay, she likes to drive a new car, so the punishment is to give her an old car instead. These people were shocked. And they are normal, modest people. Then Mother said, "Sir, we've been doing this for 19 years. Through TV and other media, positive preconditioning enters every family and society." Then Mother said, "I really don't know what will happen if she starts to beat us up again." The doctor said, "If this doesn't work, come again. I'll give you some medicaments for sedation." However, that's not a solution either. Soft punishment and rewarding is not good. From anger to fury, there's a long way. You see these substructures. On anger, there's another anger. From the source of anger as a protective emotion to the furious moment when it... From the source of anger as a protective emotion to the furious moment when a kid can kill. What do we do? Forgive the child when he's furious. There are cases when they take a gun and shoot the father or grandmother for 100 euros. Since this substructure has been building up and suppressed for a long time, fury, then anger fights emotions. What happens? The child pushes down anger, fury. In a traditional family, when a child is punished, they are very angry, but they go out to fight with someone. But this child cannot make a fuss or create. But this child cannot make a fuss or create a riot because he will not be there in the position to... But this kid cannot make a fuss or create a riot because he will not then be in a position to get a reward. That child hides his suppressed anger, pushes it inside, then it hits the liver. There are two organs which are under emotion of anger, the liver and the gallbladder. Why are these two organs in such a bad condition? If I hear that a little child of 10 years old has a fat liver, it's not because he's an alcoholic, but because he has repressed all his anger. This is because he's forbidden to be angry. If he's angry, then Mum will say, "Now you'll not get anything." For him, it's a tragedy because he's greedy. Then he'll start to act, to beg, to show that he's a nice boy. But in fact, he's not good. At that moment, he hates you. and he's going to punish you when he's 16 years old. For the time being, he cannot because he's too little. The moment he can't stand that emotion of anger anymore, when his anger is going to burst, he will go to the street and present his emotions there. Kids fight in the street, in schools, they make groups. They cause trouble on school trips. They bully the teachers. The parent cannot be touched because he is a sponsor. Then parents say to the teacher, "What problems do you have with the kid? He's great at home." Because the parent is a sponsor and the kid is okay with him. Up to 10 to 12 years of age, but I will tell you what happens then. When the kid comes to school, the teacher does not have money to give him a candy. I heard that in Novi Sad, unfortunately, they've introduced preconditioning like, whoever sleeps fast will get a candy bar. It's a catastrophe. It means that my natural need to sleep has to be done in order to get the chocolate. The problem starts there. And when they get up, they give him candies. Or when teachers ask, "What's this animal?" and a child says it correctly, "Bravo, here's the candy." The other kid says it wrong, so he can't get a candy. What will happen to that child later when he graduates if he gets one candy for a word? It's not clear to me why no one can understand this to figure it out. It often happens that families come to my place for therapy who have already been to the psychiatrist before. The famous psychiatrist, Vladeta Jerotic, wrote the introduction for my first book. He is a great authority in this area of psychiatry, and wherever he speaks, he tells people to read my book. He is 80 years old and he's a psychiatrist. Parents who hear what I'm telling them do not say after the lecture, "It's not important." You feel that my story is your story. Here we can say that modern education is finished. That is what we can read in the books, soft pressure and positive preconditioning. But things are not so simple. The rest of the three authoritative models are hidden. No one is talking about them. About these two, everyone says, "It's super, the modern educative system." In a moment, the kid is educated. No one wants to speak about overprotection, verbalism, and about abuse of the imitating mind. So they talk about the two, but do not talk about these three models. If you hear this story, which I'm supposed to tell, you will see that our kids will not survive the time that's coming. We must free them from training. In the third millennium, there is no need for a man to be trained. Every child has a need to eat, sleep, and learn. These are genuine spiritual needs. This will happen naturally, without force from outside. There is only the need for a little bit of motivation, and everything will be okay. Overprotection is a model that's known to everyone. It existed small-scale in the traditional family, mostly with boys. We overprotected our sons and our husbands, first from one thing, working in the kitchen. They knew, it's the generation of our sons and their grandsons, that they will not work in the kitchen. Everything else was okay. They were good students, good farmers, they were good in the field. Then when we overprotected our brothers from work in the kitchen, then when my husband would come, for me it was normal that I washed the dishes. I did not get a divorce because of this. Now the other problem appears. There is overprotection for both women and men, both boys and girls. But overprotection is threefold. This is a much hidden model. It looks like love. If I enter the house and I see a woman feeding the boy aged about 10 to 12 years, I say, "Madam, what are you doing?" "Oh, but I have to be sure that my son is eating." You will not believe how many stupidities I see. And they are everywhere. You will see that everyone is hiding. In America, Serbia and Slovenia, everyone is hiding. Everyone is afraid. We did not have such problems in the traditional family. Parents come from our traditional family. This is a problem, and the little ones are our victims. Overprotection from work. No one's working. Then the mother comes and says, "Help or I'll die. I have a son and daughter. When I come back from the house, everything is in chaos. No one's heated up the lunch. The kids have been eating fast food. So they don't want to help themselves. No one wants to work." I asked, "Well, what have you been doing for 12 years?" "Everything was done by me. Tying up shoelaces up to 9 years. Feeding him up to 6 or 7. "What else did you do?" "Well, I always say to him, 'Mum will do it, it's quicker.' Children become parasites. Then, when kids go to school, mother says, 'Is it difficult for you, my son?' 'Oh, Mum, how difficult it is for me.' Then another says, 'Oh, I'll do your homework for you. And if teacher gives you a bad mark, I'll go to speak with him. And Dad has connections in the ministry.' And then the child threatens the teacher. 'Don't mess with me. I have connections in the ministry. I will sue you.' Then the teacher gets frightened about his work. I had an example of a young pupil, first grade, who was drawing beautifully. At home, he only functioned with overprotection and rewards. The teacher said to him, "Oh, how beautifully you've drawn this." He said, "This is nothing, I can do it better." She said, "Well, draw Saint Sava for me." He said, "Ha, well, give me 100 dinars. Do you understand what's going on in the mind of our kids? Overprotection from work is present on every level. What happens? You get a parasite. What else do you get? You get a completely unconscious person. What does this mean? Human beings are sensual creatures. We're on this planet in order to become conscious. We cannot achieve that goal if we do not work, with our hands, with our brain, anything. Our kids do not do anything, and that is the truth. I've just visited a Slovenian family, and I asked the child, the boy is 3rd grade of gymnase, "How many hours per day do you study?" He said, "I don't study at all." Is this possible? They have a serious program, books to read. They have to practice, maths and physics. We know how much they do. We know how much they ask in schools. "No, I'm not studying at all." "Well, how are you achieving the marks?" "Well, that's my problem." Probably he's threatening his teacher. Then the teacher says to himself, "Okay, I will overprotect him. What do you need? 5? Okay, I'll give you a 5. Just you be calm. Sleep there by the radiator." Now teachers are in a position to make compromises and to protect children from work. I had enormous demands during my work in traditional school. You know, we had a lot of things to comprehend and learn in traditional school. I do not know how I would act now in modern schools. Probably children would be aggressive towards me. It's better that I've retired. Today, children don't want to do anything. They don't want to learn. We have a big problem. We are overprotecting our kids from order. How are we overprotecting them from order? The kids are entering kindergarten saying, "Hi, Milica." I'm not Milica to you. I'm 60 years old. It isn't normal. They say, "Shut up," to their teachers. To their teacher. And to Mum they say, "You're stupid." To grandfather they say, When are you going to die so we can take your house? So they can do everything. They can jump around the street. When you go to a restaurant, they can't sit still. The other day I was speaking in a bookstore in Ljubljana. You know what one grandmother said when she heard the story? She said, I couldn't tell this to anyone, but I will tell you. I hate my grandsons. One grandmother in Serbia told me, I have a nephew who is so rude and violent towards us. I cannot sit peacefully for 5 minutes and drink coffee with my sister. He pushes me, returning with violence. And that grandmother says, my grandson turns the music up to 300 decibels, and I'm going crazy because of it. I can't do anything to him. How are the kids repaying us? Through violence. This violence is not just when we are hit. The violence is when a kid says all the time, give me money, give. When he or she doesn't want to study. That is violence too. Or when a little child doesn't want to go to sleep. Modern kids sleep with their mum until they're 15. Do you understand what that means? You're not his lover. A child has to have his own bed. The child has to have order. If that order isn't accepted up to his or her 7th year, what do you think? It will produce chaos. This is the source of chaos on the planet. They can do anything, even kill. Overprotection from order is a catastrophe. The consequences are catastrophic. Now let's see what the consequences of overprotection from life are. I have watched funerals in Serbia. I've watched funerals in villages and Belgrade funerals. You can't see children at either place. Then I remembered that when our grandmothers and grandfathers were buried, the whole family was present. It was our last farewell to grandmother. We even kissed her for the last time. It was an introduction to the part of life called death. Now suddenly I ask mothers, where are the children? Grandmother died. Grandmother should be escorted. You will never see her again. It's the end. That grandmother gave you something. She took care of you when you were little, read a story for you, went for a walk with you. Modern mothers say, oh, we cannot. It's stressful for the child. Stress. And where is your child now? You don't have to tell me. The child is at home at the moment, in front of the computer and playing games. It kills. That is not stress. They do not connect this at all. What will be the consequences in 20 years when the child becomes old and grown up, and when he doesn't know what the last day of grandmother looked like? These are all unnatural things. It seems as if we've all lost contact with the whole of nature, with man, with life. So, with overprotection, we have a consequence. Laziness, anarchy. The children are anarchists. They do whatever they want to. They do not have a stop line, and then people appear telling something close to what I say. The child has to have boundaries. Yes, but how are you positioning the boundaries? There is a chocolate or there's not a chocolate. So the punishment and reward principle, this is not the way. It is a temporary solution. After a while, the kid will say, I'm not interested in your boundaries or in your chocolates or a mobile. I'll get it my way. So there's a difference between all the books written worldwide regarding the education of children and the system produced in Serbia in 1932 through my school and my family alphabet. Now you understand. Boundaries have to be positioned. It has to be that at 9 o'clock he's in bed if he's 7 years old. Why? Not because Milica says so, but because she has to go to school tomorrow, to follow his teacher. The boundary is that a child should not be put in front of the TV in the morning to fulfill his TV need for aggressive cartoons, or just 5 minutes to play games. No, it cannot be so, because he's going to school in 10 minutes. There they sit, mother puts on his shoes, father puts on the socks, and the kid is watching a cartoon. Well, how will he work in school for 4 hours? It's not possible. If you've made a schedule and the kid turns on the TV, no, it cannot be so. The end of the story. But because you don't give him punishments and rewards, the kid feels that this is good. But because you don't give him punishment and reward, the kid feels that this is for his good. And he listens to what you say. This is why a lot of them are getting mixed up and believe that creative education is great liberty in anarchy. No. Creative education gives freedom in such a way that first it creates emotional harmony, and then emotions of love and goodness become controllers. Then there is not a need to say to a child, "When you go tonight, don't take any dope." No, the kid will not take dope, because his authentic being is love and goodness, and he doesn't need dope. The kids don't take dope in order to be someone ahead of the others. These are false stories. The kid has a need to drink and forget his problems. There's great pressure, and that is the way pressure has been emptied, through violence. Violence over him, which leads to sickness, alienation, mental illness. When you see that a child is aggressive, suppressed aggression, when you see that a child is greedy, when you see that a child is unconscious or lazy, a parasite, then you get frightened. Modern mothers say, "What have I done?" There are two ways. One is that she solves the problem by herself. She doesn't call her husband, and you will see why she doesn't call her husband. She says nicely, "Son, let's talk in a peaceful way." That is verbalism. She is still using the previous models. Today, all mothers, or mostly mothers, are doing verbalism. "Son, it's not nice that you're lazy. You're 12 years old." And who was overprotecting him from work? This very same mother. Even now she's overprotecting him. "It's not nice that you're greedy. I bought you a toy yesterday, or a new sweater." The kid does not understand. He does not know this language. But since the child is 7 years old, he's not broken completely. He says to Mum, "Oh, tomorrow I'll be good. I'll be peaceful. I'll listen. I'll study." And Mum is happy because of the promises. Then he says, "Mum, can I just watch a little bit of TV?" Of course, Mum is happy, and the TV and computer are in the room. The kid spends 2 to 3 hours on the computer. Then at midnight, porno movies come. Everything is there. Mum is happy because he'll be good tomorrow. He will not be good tomorrow. Tomorrow, when he goes to kindergarten, he will be sleepy. The level of hormones is raised thanks to the pornographic movies. He now watches girls, his teacher. When he comes home, you ask him, "Were you a good boy?" He says, "Yes." He's lying like a politician. He looks straight into your eyes and lies to you. He's not lying because he wants to harm you. He is lying because he wants to be good. He said last night that he will be good. He wants to protect Mummy. Then you tell him that he's a liar. And actually, deep inside, he has a big wish to protect you. Now you understand why kids lie to you. You're pushing them into it, by verbalism. Up to age 9, he will listen to you. Up to that age, at least, he will make a promise and lie to you. After that, he'll say, "Come on, Mum, don't strangle me, choke me anymore." Why do they say strangle in Serbian language? Why did they use that term, to strangle? Because of these two organs, the lungs and guts. They are connected through the energy of verbalism. And they really feel that they are strangled by empty stories. You are asking him to be moral, not to be lazy, to work, to like to eat, and to like school. But you've done everything so that he can't. So verbalism, which is today the most common and appreciated way of education, for me is the most immoral form of education. Because you're asking the kid to be moral in an amoral, authoritative condition. Now, please think about what I've said. Verbalism is present at all levels. Why do people today get ill mostly in their lungs? Because at this level it's the energy of sadness and the energy of will. On a mental level there is a will, and on an emotional level, on a mental level there is a will, and on an emotional level there is sorrow. Since a child cannot achieve, he loves mother, father, teacher. He would like to work, but he can't. So he becomes sad. And this continues in their lungs. Why was tuberculosis the main sickness in the 19th century? Everyone was sad. Poets like Branko Radičević. What's happening in the 21st century? Everyone has lung problems. We are afraid of the new flu. Why do illnesses occur in our lungs? Because there is a connection. When I live, I breathe. Sadness is the main problem. If you are sad, then you don't want to live. You don't have courage to kill yourself immediately. You say, I'll first get ill, then we'll see. So think for a while. Soft force, overprotection and rewarding, verbalism. There are enough models for us to say that kids have lost the feeling for what is good and what is not. To give an example, when you put kids with these 4 models in front of the cartoon called Noddy, Mum says, "Oh, thank God, it's not aggressive. Little Noddy is good. He is doing something all the time, etc." But Mother doesn't see that when her son stands up after watching Noddy, he doesn't do something nice like Noddy. Why? Because with that child, the feeling for good and bad is already lost. He can't recognize it. When we were little, and when they used to read us the story of Little Red Riding Hood, all kids, because inside there's a natural feeling for what is bad and what is good, were on the side of Little Red Riding Hood. Now, when you go to a theatre where you can see that piece, everyone's on the side of the wolf. The same thing in spiritual growth will attract similar. If the kids are aggressive, they'll be on the side of the wolf. If the kids are lazy, they will watch the 2 little devils in Noddy. Noddy is good and nice, and 2 little bad guys do bad things. They are lazy and they cheat all the time. Kids will identify themselves with the 2 bad guys, not with Noddy. So, that's the problem. The problem is not solved if you make a good show for the kids. When we were little, we watched Branko Kocica. When we were little, we watched Branko Kocica, Toboggan for Kids. Today, TV says, "We have money. Let us make a show for the kids." But the kid says, "Cartoon? Not interested. Eurovision songs? Not interested. What interests me? Sex." They are not kids anymore. Branko doesn't interest them anymore. They are old people today. They have all the mortal sins: anger, greed, unconsciousness and envy. Then the 5th model finishes them completely. That is like the cream on the cake. The 5th model is abuse of the imitating mind. Mrs. Montessori stated in her book, which is well known at all universities, like Steiner as well, that the human mind is open. Like the Pope used to talk about open society. What does this mean? Open mind. How does God or nature create that? Up to the age of 7, the mind is open. By imitating, it can learn everything. Languages, for example. By imitating. When we used to imitate our parents, even socialist TV that we had, usually with mother and father, we started to watch the show and learn the songs. Mother would prepare the lunch, and we listened to the songs of Dragan Lakovic. Then we went to school and sang those songs again with our teacher. Everything was the same, and when you imitated them, bad or good. If father was an alcoholic, you imitated him. But children were not confused. Modern kids are put in front of the TV very early. At the age of 1, they sit on their bottoms, he takes the remote control, and we say, "Bravo, you're a genius, you know how to turn on a TV set." From that moment, there's no control anymore. The kid is turning on and off, changing channels, etc. And on all the channels, all the same in our country, you have the same content. Violence, sex, commercials. Even when you watch Baby Channel, which can be watched by a 2-month-old baby, he sees how mums are playing. This is a sort of violence too, because his mum doesn't play with him. His mother is ironing things, and he watches how some other mum is playing with her kids. This is violence, because instead of you doing it, the TV is doing it for you. That is the beginning. And then there comes in line violence, sex, commercial. Commercial, sex, violence. A kid very quickly makes a connection in his or her mind that this is life. In a store, he knows exactly where the chocolates are, and then it starts. "Buy me this, buy me that." "Will you be peaceful when we go to the shopping centre?" The kid says, "Okay, I'll be calm, buy me milk chocolate." That is the condition. And this is why it is controlled. The borders cannot be positioned by punishment and reward. No need. Andrea's children can go to the marketplace and shopping mall without problems. No one is touching anything. Before, they made a plan. "Martin, what do you need?" "I need toothpaste." "Do you need chocolate?" "No, no need." Now, when he comes to the shopping mall, he can't say, "Mummy, I want chocolate." No, it's over. When you educate your children with order, the kid listens, because the kid likes to be in harmony. And it's our thoughts that they like to be in anarchy. It's a big mistake. And we are usually supporting anarchy, and we do not understand things. So, TV, computer, playing games kills. That leads to the total crash. That leads to the total crash of a child's brain. Because everything that you push into that open mind at the age of 7 becomes closed. And there is a sentence, "The child is father of the man." What does this mean? That what you put into him for 7 years is the system that conducts his whole life. What you put inside, violence, sex, commercials, that is now his essence. Where is the solution? Common. Control it. We put on the board what the point is, and Andrea wrote it. It is recommended that up to 3 years is the period when a child forms his or her real emotions. Children do not have virtual emotions. That means that if the child suffers, it suffers because mum is ill, and not because some character from cartoons did not save the world. It's very important to prevent the child from virtual emotions. Women have written out of experience that children should be protected from virtual reality. And And everything that I've said to you today, no one has commented on these models that I've given, but they all said, "It's not possible. Up to the 3rd year. We in control. It is easier for me to put the child in front of a cartoon. I have to rest. I can't. I'm tired." Yes, you are tired. What from? From these models. You cannot be tired from children if they are without these models, and if they are good, and if they are in love. Then you can say, "Son, be calm, Mum is drinking coffee," and the child will listen. Children like to be in harmony. Everything has become so not normal that we ask ourselves, what is happening to us? It's like a virus. I gave a lecture in a kindergarten in Niš, and a little boy, 5 years old, was sitting on Mother's lap. When I'd finished, and if I talk in kindergartens, I insist that parents come together with kids. And you should have brought kids too, because kids are suffering. They are masters today. They don't want to listen to you. The only moment when they will listen is when they hear my story. I told you a few moments ago that I was with one Slovenian family, and after 2 hours, their boy, third grade of gymnase, said, "Milica, you're right. I'm so happy to understand all this. Can I do my sociology homework on this subject? Can I send this to my friend? Some sociological research?" I was so happy. And Mother asked me to come to that family because her kid didn't want to learn anything. Then he asked me to send him a book in the Serbian language. That was beautiful. Suddenly, you understand, that change of consciousness started after 2 hours of talking. That is the reason why kids have to be there. That little boy in kindergarten sits so calmly when I'm talking to the kids. That little boy in kindergarten sits so calmly when I'm talking. The kids are so calm. I used to say, "Bring the baby too." Then everyone is calm, and children understand me better than adults because they aren't suffering. You are worried and concerned, but you really aren't suffering inside. What happens? That little boy said, "Now I understand why this life is a crazy house." 5 years. Mother was crying. Another kid, at another lecture, said, "And I told her, 'You threw me into the wolf's den.'" "Which wolf's den?" I asked him. "Kindergarten," was the answer. How, when I know that kindergarten is good? Then I started to think about the subject called socialization. I must explain this to you. Socialization and 2 or 3 more things, and why kids do not want to learn. These 4 sicknesses you saw, how heart and lungs are spent. Let us see what socialization is. When we have a rational family, the family had rules that came out from the rules of society. Society said, "This is a must." But the practice in kindergarten is wider socialization. The kid comprehends how to function inside his or her peer group, to see how she or he will act towards the teacher or educator. That is socialization, to follow some rules. For us, this was normal. Almost all kids were socialized. Suddenly, a young mother isn't working anymore. Do you know how many of them are in Serbia now? There are no jobs in Serbia. And in your place you have reasons. No one is working, meaning that a lot of people do not have a job. Mum says, "My child goes to preschool." "How come, lady?" Now the mayor says it's not possible to send a kid to kindergarten if mother is not working. Then I ask, "Well, why do you send your child to kindergarten? You're not working. A little child of 2 years or 1 year or even 6 months. Then she says, "Well, my child has to be socialized." I go to Ćuprija, Niš, Montenegro. All mothers are saying the same sentence. Then I started to think, what does socialization mean at the moment? And mothers do not work. And I know that it would be normal for children up to 3 years to be socialized, at least for the house, with grandmother, with grandfather, with neighbors, with a sister, brother. First you have to do this, then go further. Now, I'm not now talking just about working mums in order to explain how they incorrectly comprehend the term socialization. They send the kid to kindergarten to socialize him. I have to explain what is really happening in the mind of that mother. Since she is a traditional mother who sees that nothing is good, the child is aggressive, breaking things. If the child goes to the park, it fights with other kids, takes their toys away, is lazy and does nothing, doesn't want to listen. Then mother says, something's not okay. Why? We're making mistakes somewhere. Let me send him to primary, to kindergarten, so that they can put him in order there. Aha! And then the kid goes to kindergarten. There are educational teachers there who are traditional, like mothers. They are good, and mothers are good. But what socialization when the educator says, now we will talk, now we will sing, we have a program. Kids are just watching. They come from home, computer, sex, violence and commercials. For them, everything is boring. But they have to listen. And then, when they have free space, children are friends. And then they are actively doing socialization between them, because they have one very similar educator. The TV, computer, playing games. Mother is no longer an educator. Neither is the teacher in primary or kindergarten. They take care and try to teach them something. Our kids, and all the kids of the world, are educated by a virtual governess. This is their educator. And now, when they gather together, one says, oh, did you see Batman yesterday? Yeah, I did, super, I'll conquer the world. And girls say, oh, did you see that Spanish show on TV? Did you see how beautiful that actress is? She did not talk about that with Mum. And a boy says, oh, did you see how that guy attacks with his sword? Or, did you kill on Counter-Strike yesterday? Yeah, I did, okay. When we go back home, let's connect on the net to play. And these are 4 to 5-year-olds. Of course, after a while, the subject of sex appears. Even in kindergarten or primary school, you'll not believe it. Everywhere. Someone was watching a porno film, someone else violence. It goes together. First violence, then sex. And kids see that at home. In front of the TV sit grandmother, grandfather, mother, father, and in the movie you have first violence and then sex. And no one is hiding it. No one is reacting. And then the kid says, okay, this is great. We haven't protected him. Then children start to talk with each other about that. Now educators say to me, in Slovenia, in Serbia, it's a big problem, and I'm not ashamed to talk about it in front of the cameras, because it is a big problem. They say that kids are masturbating at the age of 18 months and 2 years, at a very early age. I had to see, why are they doing this? This is the reason. If the kid has all the time the same sequence, violence, sex, he or she fills him up with pressure. And very quickly they start to touch their sexual organs and feel that it's very nice. Then they think, oh, this is great, I can empty myself. They start to do it very early, so by the age of 12 they can turn to real sex. Not love, just sex. Now you have a problem. If he does it at the age of 2, 5, and turns to real sex at the age of 12 years without love, just to empty pressure, because he cannot stand it anymore, these 5 models are exploding, Either he will kill someone or he has to empty himself. So kids understand very quickly that the fastest way of emptying themselves is sex without love. I do not need love. And this is why their brain continually asks for new and new sensations. I will give you an example a lot of boys related to. That boy turns on hardcore porno, and I suppose that at the age of 26, sooner or later, that boy will be impotent. Why impotent? Because the brain has its limits. If he watches sex as a little boy, and then as a boy, and later on, so on, this virtual sex as well, the brain continually asks for more X, XX, XXXL, and a brain that's not connected with a brain that's not connected with hurt has its limits. A brain controlled by love and goodness does not have limits. But that one has boundaries, like a computer. In one moment, it becomes impotent. He says, "No way. If you bring me the most beautiful girl, I won't react." The brain doesn't react, and naturally impotence follows. Now I will tell you about a kid who has been socialized, and you will understand what socialization is by bringing from its governess, a virtual one, the TV, new ideas. He asks, "Mother doesn't let you watch TV." "Ah, well then you wait until she falls asleep. Then you can watch." They learn, kids, everything from each other. And you ask yourself, how come he knows everything? I was working with one lady who was very attractive. That kid was watching porno movies after midnight. The TV sets are in their rooms, without control. No one is permitting them to watch. They have remote controls. He was 4 years old, like Martin, really sweet. His mother is a great woman, a psychologist. He heard from a friend in kindergarten, and when mother fell asleep, he was watching TV, and his hormones started to change. This is a little kid. This is violence. And you see little girls, they're so thin and they're models, little women. Or you see a 7-year-old child like a grandfather. We don't have kids anymore. We have a big Eurovision song competition and a little Eurovision song competition. You have big dancers and little dancers. Everything has changed. To finish the story, one day when mother was changing her clothes, he said, "Oh, mother, you've got such good breasts." He said this to his mum. Mother was frightened. She's a psychologist. 4 years. Only after they came to me did we solve the problem. We explained to the kid that mother has a big problem defending herself from him. He was acting towards his mother like a man. Luckily, we removed the source of such behavior. And if you remove the source, there'll be no consequences. You cannot dismiss consequences if you're not fighting against the sources. For example, there are a lot of drug addicts in Slovenia. Let us form workshops. What workshops? You say, well, it's dangerous. And you talk. Kids think, what on earth are they telling me? He wants to take drugs. If he does not have a problem, then he doesn't want to take drugs. But someone gives them to him. He wants to be drugged. Then you have big billboards in cities. Say no to drugs. They're laughing at this. Kids don't want to say no to drugs. But if you remove the sources, and the sources of 5 authoritative... But if you remove the sources, and the sources of 5 authoritative models, which are creating pressure, and one road for releasing pressure is sex, the other is drugs, alcohol, etc. You will not solve the problem of alcoholism in the world if you're fighting against alcoholism. But you should see why a person needs to get drunk on Saturday and Sunday. It's too much tension. There is tension in the family, at work, and at weekends. He relieves himself. That's not a solution. First, let us try to lower the tension in the family. I don't know how much more time I have to tell you, but you have to know what the third millennium is. The third millennium is that this pyramid crashes down. Evil is bigger now. There is more evil than goodness. When we enter into creative education, one family will take good, then another, then the third, from the surface of life. Kids will not play with guns, but will go to the library. We have beautiful films. We have a lot of beauty. They will take beauty. Where does this lead us? This leads us to the parallel pyramid. Up until now, we have had this left pyramid. Everyone to his or her own. One goes there, one goes here. And nowhere to meet with each other. The left side is man's energy, and the right is women's energy. We never meet with each other. We quarrel. When you enter creative education, where emotion starts to run, then you get emotional intelligence. What happens? This left part and that on the right meet with each other here. Now we are harmonized. We grow in good and bad as much as we want to. I was astonished when I entered St. Sava's church in Vračar. I must enter a church in Slovenia too. When I saw in the church a pyramid like this one here, I asked myself, how come the priests know this? I realized that through medicine. Now I understand through my educational system. When we dismiss when we dismiss those models, then the right and left side will harmonize and meet with each other. In me there are two parts, man and woman. First harmony will appear in me, then in my partner, who also has man and woman parts inside of him. He'll get into harmony. If there is no preconditioning between man and woman, we call it soft pressure or violence. If our relationships are without violence, then they will be harmonized. And if they are without violence, then we have good social intelligence. So no one from outside should tell me, man should not beat woman, because he will not hear them. If life is without violence, then there is love. That is the solution. Now I'm about to finish the story by telling what the problem is today between men and women. Today, a big war is going on between men and women. In the traditional family, it was peaceful. Men said to women, "You have sadness, fear, concern. You will take care of the children." Man has strength, testosterone. So, man has strength, testosterone. You will go to work hard in the field. It was not so easy. And women could finish a job, and man was in the position to take care of the children for a while. But it was separated. You here, I there. And we managed ourselves somehow. It was not easy at all. Then all barriers collapsed. The material pyramid disappeared, and suddenly a war between women and men got into power. Women said, "Okay, is it only you who wants to drive an aeroplane? I can do it too." Of course, when everything is automatic, he can drive as well as she can. And why then do we have a war when we have made an aeroplane which can be driven by both sides? Why can't we have the position, he's shooting a film, she's shooting a film? It's a piece of cake. Finish faculty, and she will shoot as well as he does. Today, everything is easy. But why then do you have a war between man and women? Why then do you have a war between man and woman? Because a woman is supported on the social level. All the time you can hear how a woman has rights. And where is man in this? He is the violent one. He is supposed to be put on ice. Why is it like that? Why is man the violent one? He is on top of the pyramid, but no longer. He fell down into the dust. And woman? Well, she's on the top. There is no pyramid anymore, but she thinks that she's on top because society is supporting her. Now she says, I want gender equality. Well, who is forbidding this for you? Who is forbidding politicians from writing a law saying that man and woman will have the same salary? She drives an aeroplane, he drives an aeroplane. But why war? Why? You will see now. Since the woman is supported, she is accepting everything that society tells her. If they say soft pressure, she accepts. Punishment, reward, punishment, reward. Man says, woman, it's no good. What's no good? Well, you don't understand anything. He says, well, children need order. Oh, you don't know. Well, here war starts. And when mothers destroy children in the 4th or 5th year, she starts to attack him. Only I'm raising the kids. He says, well, what's the problem? She says, well, look how they're behaving. But today, men are much smarter because they have more of the traditional in their relations towards kids. They are victims today. Men have been totally thrown into the dust. When a father says, do you need help? She says, yes. And when she says, do you need help? He says, yes. Then he hits twice and she says, oh, you're violent towards the kid. The kid is listening. Then mother and child say, we will sue you. Goodbye. Then he goes into another marriage, new wife, new kids. There the problem began. Most divorces are due to quarrels because the kids are not good. Martin is afraid. Father can't do anything. There's no one who can teach him not to punish the kids, but to solve the problems by taking away these 5 authoritative models. Then he becomes frightened. She became frightened. He turns gay, and he is sick and tired of women. These are the problems that seem difficult to explain, but they are not. When a woman says, I can drive a truck, an aeroplane, what's she doing? She is entering his side into the man's space, and she pushes him away. And what does he do? He turns to her woman's side. Then he starts changing the nappies. Okay, but let him go to his side. In kindergarten, I have three grandchildren, 1 boy and 2 girls. I feel sorry for the boy. When he plays in the kindergarten with lots of girls, they say, you don't know, that stupid sword. Now we will tell on you to the teachers. And boys are starting to have fears because in their 4th year, testosterone is coming. Boys want to be strong. This is normal development for a boy who is in a different phase. These boys then live surrounded with mothers, their fathers have gone, who talk badly about men, and he becomes frightened. He constantly hears how men are not okay. And this is a boy. He becomes frightened and it's not his energy. He has energy, man and woman, but his man part goes deep inside. And you can have muscular women who are biting husbands. The men are in the back, and they are calm. This is not normal. They get ill. And how is it supposed to be? Here is a mother. Andrea is here with us now. Today she's on the man's side. She came here to listen to the lectures, and her husband is taking care of the children. He's on the women's side. They were preparing a cake. He went with them to the marketplace. He goes with them to the swimming pool. Then mother will come home. Super. Their marriage is much better now. Now, when she comes home, he will go for a walk for 1 hour. Or he will go swimming, and there's no need for mother to be jealous. So when you dismiss those models between man and woman, you have love and goodness. This is the reason why I'm writing a third book, Love Between the Sexes, Not War. Between teacher and pupil, worker and boss. If you dismiss those 5 models, there will be no mobbing. But how will you dismiss those 5 models? How can a greedy man become good, or a lazy man like to work? So the first problem is to dismiss the 5 models and to return to source emotions. And finally, to tell you, that third millennium will be a millennium where only the educational system will be a creative educational system. I'm looking very positive and self-aware when I say that, because there are so many people who are working on education. One mother called Andrea, who is a main trainer of creative education in Slovenia, and asked, "Andrea, is it really working?" Yes, you just have to know where to start. You will come with your family. Now you are alone, but next time you will come with your kids, your wife, your grandmother, and then you will listen to the lecture together. Then you will read the book, and then you will make an activity plan of new rules. And the first rule that you tell to your kids is, there will be no more violence anymore. Neither can you be violent towards me, nor can I be violent towards you. It's going to be difficult with little kids, because when you've been destroying a little kid at such an early age, it's quite difficult to tell him that now you will go to bed at 9 o'clock. He will be against it. And it will seem as if you're using pressure over him, because you're saying, no discussion. You're going to bed. You will not beat him or do anything else. When I have a big boy like this these days, we make a deal. There's no discussion. Everything goes well. Creative education does not solve things problem by problem. You cannot call me and tell me, "Oh, my son's had 6 bad marks, he's not learning, solve this problem for me." Why can't I solve this problem for you? I have to catch the moment when you started to destroy your kid because of learning. You started in his 3rd year, when instead of reading him stories or books, you placed him in front of the TV. And the TV is here. It's a product. And since your kid just learned to swallow a picture, in 1st grade, his teacher says, "Read." And he says, "What? I don't see it." He cannot turn the words into pictures. He's only used to pictures, the finished product. This is the reason why modern books for children have lots of pictures. This is a very good explanation for teachers. You think your students are lazy? No, they do not see what they are reading. And especially, they don't hear. And when they come home, mother asks what they've been learning today. Oh, I don't know. And you think that's nasty? No, he simply cannot hear. Because when he was watching TV, he was not listening. He was only watching. He swallowed the picture. And now, when he has to listen to the voice of a teacher, his brain is not used to turning the voice into the picture. And since he hasn't read anything, when he sees a lot of text, his brain cannot recognize the content. One girl in the second class said that she has to read one text 16 times before memorizing it. She says, "I cannot see it." She doesn't say that she can't understand it. She says, "I can't see it." The pupils are just memorizing. They don't understand, they just throw up what they're supposed to in front of professor. I would say today's pupils have problems of bulimia and anorexia. They swallow the text and they throw it up. Next day, they don't know what they've been learning because they do not connect those things which they comprehend. That's why I say, give a little book with a small number of pictures. They say, "Oh, we can't." They put the kid in front of a TV immediately. Well, the kid can't go back now. In first grade, he says, "This is all boring. It's easier in front of the TV." And people in the Ministry of Education have problems too. It's difficult for everyone, and no one sees where the problem is. They say, "Oh, well, let's make books for them with lots of pictures." Now you have books with lots of pictures and little text. Picture, picture, picture. Then 2 sentences. And these 2 sentences, the kids can't understand and they forget them. You will not solve the problems if you produce books with lots of text either. No. You have to dismiss the cause of the problem. To take advantage of books up to the age of 7 regarding virtual reality. And finally, please do not say that Milica is against new technology. I'm astonished by the internet, TV, computers. But what's bad? The content that we're offering to kids is bad. Today, the news in Belgrade is that one girl was rescued from suicide because she and her boyfriend were making love through the internet. They were writing to each other on the internet. And when they saw that their love was impossible, they wanted to commit suicide. He drank poison first, but it was not enough. They rescued him. And then he said, "Quickly call Belgrade, mail. My girlfriend, quickly." Then the police came. That's the bad side of the internet. Where are those parents who should have taken control over this? They are nowhere because kids are controlling us. We have to stop that. I wish you great happiness, my dear listeners, and I beg you to make some effort, because these are our kids. We do not have other kids. Don't be surprised if you have a miserable, unhappy, ill child at the age of 16 if we don't do the job on time. The other name for creative education is education without pain. Thank you very much for your attention, and go to work.